Welcome back, everyone, to the Sports Frenzy podcast. Our News 8 sports correspondents, Andy McDonald and Dean Holzwarth, joining us now. Gentlemen, thank you all for being here. Obviously, got a lot to talk about regarding not just the Michigan NBA team, but also the future WNBA team. We're also going to be touching on the Red Wings and how they've sort of handled the offseason so far. But the big news, of course, dealing with the Detroit Pistons is the fact that guard Malik Beasley is now part of a federal investigation into gambling on NBA games over the course of potentially many years. Guys, we're going to get into sort of the nitty-gritty behind it, but just initial thoughts when you guys first heard the news that, he was a free agent, but the Pistons seemed like they were trying to re-sign him after the season that he had, but now kind of hearing this news kind of puts a damper on that a little bit.
Yeah, I was super surprised. I think I heard they were days away from signing him to a 2-3 year contract and keeping him in Detroit. And so obviously it's always surprising, maybe not so much in this day and age when you hear when a NBA player or a sports or an athlete is connected to a gambling situation. But obviously super disappointing from a Pistons standpoint, right? Like they were getting ready to sign Malik Beasley, who had a career year last year as far as three-pointers made, and obviously helped kind of revitalize the Pistons and get them to the playoffs. And then now it doesn't look like he's going to be in a Pistons uniform. So, yeah, super disappointing. But we'll see how things shake out.
Yeah, he wasn't even a starter, and he had one of the better seasons in Pistons history from the three-point line. And what have I talked about all offseason? The one ad that I want them to do is add three-point shooting. So I don't think they expected to lose him this way. I don't think there's any way. I mean, he talked about how much. I mean, maybe that was a little bit of a fallback thing. Maybe he kind of knew what was going on now that we know. But he talked about how much he wanted to play in Detroit. So yeah, he was gonna come back, and he was gonna be that person probably for them again next year, or at least what they wanted him to be. So that's a huge loss. Obviously, signing Duncan Robinson is probably what they're trying to do to counteract it a little bit. But I think the difference is that, from Duncan Robinson's time at Michigan, obviously we watched him a decent amount. Not the best defender since he's been in the NBA either. It only gets tougher at that level. So Beasley could give you a little bit of defense. So I think it's still going to be really, really tough to replace that. Even him being somebody that came off the bench, he was just a huge jolt for them, and he helped space the floor for Cade when they're on the floor together. So hopefully Robinson can do a little bit of that, but the Pistons definitely have a challenge that they didn't expect coming in this offseason right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was going to be kind of the question I had for you two, because he's obviously the best three-point shooter on the team, or was at least. But like Andy kind of said, he also provided a little bit of that spark off the bench, some defensive intensity, and just overall vibes. I mean, the shimmy after the three-point celebrations, I mean, that kind of helped the vibe around the locker room a little bit. I mean, what really is the biggest loss for the Pistons after this? Is it the three-point shooting? Is it the bench productivity? I mean, just in your opinion, what is the biggest hole right now for the Pistons with this absence?
I'm gonna say it's his veteran leadership. Something off the court, right? I think the guys looked up to him. He's a consummate professional, and I think just that veteran leadership they're gonna miss. Mm-hmm. You can replace guys, you can get guys in to shoot the three-point shot. You can surround Cade and the others with the good shooters. But I think just from the off the court in the locker room standpoint, I think you're losing that veteran leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when it comes to that, that's a great point, because obviously they like playing with him. I think sometimes it's just how the team plays together, and that might really take a hit with him not being in the lineup. They have a whole offseason to work on it. I guess it's never a good time for when you're a team or a franchise to find this out. You never want to find out that you're losing somebody unexpectedly, especially when it's not just an injury, when it's something like this where it's legal and you have no clue when he could he's probably never going to be a Piston again, but obviously it's so hard to predict. At least it happened now when free agency kind of opens, they can at least sign some of these guys. So hopefully the people they did come in, like Harris LeVert and Duncan Robinson, hopefully they can, make a big change. But yeah, on paper for me, it's obviously the three-point shooting. I mean, that's just, you lose that many three-pointers on a team that already struggled from that range. And not that Tim Hardaway was the best from three-point land, but that was the guy they went to. He's not in the team anymore. That's definitely a couple of huge hits, and Beasley obviously being the bigger of the two. So yeah, it's going to be tough for them to replace that and get that kind of same chemistry going, but hopefully at least they have a whole offseason to do it. So that's a That's the one benefit they have right now.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, he has not been charged with anything. It's just an investigation at this point. But I mean, just the way we've kind of seen these play out in the NBA with Michael Porter Jr.'s brother, Jonte Porter, a couple of other guys have faced, lifelong penalties and bans from joining the NBA once again. And we also saw that Terry Rozier's name was also kind of part of that investigation. But now he's been cleared. We have not heard that from Malik Beasley. If in case, maybe this does play out a different way than maybe what we're thinking, and no harsh penalties come down here. You guys still don't think he's coming back to Detroit?
No,
though, probably.
No, I mean, it was crazy to me. Like the one game they talked about was there was so much action on the under for 2.5 rebounds. Okay, so that went from like plus 200 to minus 250, whatever it was. So everybody's betting him to go under, and somehow, some way he was involved in this. But he had 6 rebounds, 3 in the first quarter. So like, then people would have lost money if they bet the under, to make that spread kind of go crazy. So that was kind of interesting to me, number one. But then recently, I've seen some of the videos and reels that have come out.
It's like laughable. It really
is.
Honestly.
It's so then you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I can definitely see that he was gambling on the Okay, we don't know this, right?
Right.
In my opinion, he was gambling on the NBA because you have all these little instances. Like they showed the end of the Pistons game or the last game of the year.
Yeah.
Right when he fumbled the ball out of bounds.
Yeah.
And it's funny because someone's like, did he have the Knicks money line?
Right. Yeah, seriously.
He didn't want to tie that game up. So like we just don't know. This is all just hearsay, right? But like, who knows?
Yeah, it's funny. Like you think about it at that point, he's probably so selfish that like he maybe did help him lose games. It's also one of those things where if you're a sports bettor, you kind of look at this right now and you're like, how many times does this have to happen before it actually like?
Right.
Sometimes when you're betting on a game, you think to yourself like, oh my gosh, like how did this just happen? Well, sometimes maybe it is that, you really don't know, but they are people at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that there is a 0% chance he comes back to Detroit. I do think if he was proven not guilty from the whole thing, maybe he gets signed, maybe even if it is still underway, like if he signs for a really, really cheap deal, I mean, with what he was able to do in Detroit last year, maybe they would overlook that. That kind of stuff happens all the time in sports, whether it's right or it's not. So yeah, there is a very, very slim chance, but I don't think that they're banking on it. That's why they're making the moves they're making, and I don't think that anybody should be banking on it.
Right. No. And I mean, even if he didn't receive a lifetime ban, I mean, that's just going to hang over his head the rest of his career. I mean, do you want a guy on your team that has those allegations or has been convicted of something like that on the team, potentially maybe plaguing the team in some other different ways, like you guys kind of said?
Again, that's what it is. Like what I said, like it doesn't matter sometimes, like if it's right or it's wrong, GMs will still sign people to win, because at the end of the day, if he was hitting 6 3-pointers a game, I bet mid-season, nobody from Detroit's talking about how bad it is anymore and everybody's got his back and it's some meme. I mean, that's just the world that we live in nowadays. But yeah, it is messed up. I mean, I wouldn't want him on my team right now. No.
Right.
My last little thing here is like, unless you have, I understand people have gambling problems, right, and gambling issues.
Yes.
But like, athletes have millions and millions of dollars. Like, why do you need to gain more by betting on sports and putting your career in jeopardy by doing these things?
Exactly.
Those are things I literally would never understand.
It's absolutely insane. And I mean, must be just an addiction or something like that, because it doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, again, we're going to let that all play out and definitely, obviously, keep an eye on it and just how it all really develops. But like we kind of touched on, the Pistons did not waste any time kind of addressing that as far as free agency goes. They've made a couple of signings, obviously getting Karis LeVert, Duncan Robinson. They re-signed Paul Reed, who had, in my opinion, a really good playoff series against the Knicks. It really helped the team out when Isaiah Stewart went out. So glad that he was able to, again, stay in Detroit. But they did lose 2 guys that, again, kind of helped them out throughout the season, and Tim Hardaway Jr. now going to the Denver Nuggets, Dennis Schroeder going to the Sacramento Kings. Let's talk about the losses before we talk about the gains. Schroeder and Hardaway started 77 games for the Pistons last year and was, again, that sort of veteran presence that this young team needed. I really liked Dennis Schroeder when he came over to Detroit, but again, he's getting about $15 million a year for the Kings. I don't know how I would have felt if the Pistons were picking him up for that amount of money as a guy who, once Jaden Ivey comes back, probably the third string ball handler on this team. So I guess, again, how do you guys kind of view these 2 somewhat big losses for the Pistons on top of the Malik Beasley situation?
I mean, the absolute journeyman, right?
Yeah.
And Dennis Schroeder, he goes to every team and now he's making that much money. So good for him, I guess. But Yeah, it does suck. That was the one guy that I really liked that they signed just because, like, from a culture standpoint, he seemed to fit the mold really, really well, and he seemed to be great coming off the bench as a player to kind of back up Cade and give them, let's say, the shot he hit in the playoffs. I don't think any Piston fan will forget that for if they are good for years to come from here. But yeah, it's tough. I don't know if I would have wanted, with like where the Pistons are at. I don't know if I would have wanted Tim Hardaway to start on this team again next year. So that loss is a little less for me, I guess. He didn't really impress me in the playoffs, and I love the story that he's got went to Michigan, he was back here playing, but it literally would have been the Detroit Wolverines if he still would have been here, and it would have been him, Karras, and Duncan Robinson. So definitely two big losses. At least they're doing something to replace that. I think you could almost kind of say that Karras replaces a Tim Hardaway maybe, or Dennis Schroeder. I mean, you could argue. I think it's more Hardaway. And then obviously Duncan is there to replace Beasley. So they're doing something to do it, but it still feels like even if it is one of those, as Langdon said, the on the margin moves, it feels like maybe they need to still sign one more guy to kind of shore things up and make them a little bit better.
Yeah, I think with Schroeder, obviously, like you talked about, Phil, like a veteran presence. He really stepped in last year and filled in that gap that Jaden Ivey obviously left when he got injured, and he played really well down the stretch. He helped get them to the playoffs, and he had a really good postseason. So I agree with Andy. I really like Dennis Schroeder. I was a little disappointed that he did sign with Sacramento. And then Tim Hardaway Jr., kind of same thing. Like I was not high on Tim Hardaway Jr. I thought he was very inconsistent. He'd have really good games, and then he would struggle, and then in playoffs he couldn't hit the big shot when it was needed, and he was just very streaky to me. So I'm okay with kind of Tim Hardaway leaving. And I think someone said, well, how are you going to place Dennis Schroeder? Well, you have Jaden Ivey coming back from injury.
Exactly.
So there you go.
Yeah, no, and I think them having that playoff experience was a huge part of that. But this team has been to the playoffs now, so they don't really need, they've got guys on the team now who do have that experience and can kind of rely on that a little bit more and, take away from what they did learn from Schroeder and Hardaway Jr. But like we said, they also did a lot of good things, obviously signing Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert to Michigan Wolverines back in the Mitten State, and also re-signing Paul Reed. What do we think about those specific moves for the Pistons and what they're trying to accomplish into the next year?
I mean, I like the Duncan Robinson move. Like we said, he's obviously a bona fide three-point shooter, and that's what the Pistons are going to need with Beasley, more than likely not being there. The one move I question is Karis LeVert. There's a reason this is his fourth team in the last 5 years. He had a very promising start to his career, but I don't know if he fits, as Andy would say, he fits the mold of the Pistons culture, right? Like he's more of a one-on-one guy. The Pistons right now, they did a really nice job of moving the basketball. Obviously, they play a lot through Cade, but of moving the basketball. And I feel like Karras is just a guy who wants to give me the ball and I'm going to go one-on-one. So hopefully, he can kind of fine-tune his game to kind of mesh with what the Pistons already have. But obviously he is a guy with experience and he can do a lot. To me, he's very good at everything, but he's not really great at any one thing.
Yeah, I agree with you on Duncan Robinson 100%. I think that it's tough to replace a player like Beasley and be exactly like him. I think they're doing the best job they can for the situation they were thrown into to go and pick him up. I mean, Karras, I'm a little excited about Karras, I guess, just because of the fact that I think that he can get to the hoop and he has that kind of ability. I mean, the one thing is he's only played, I think it's 72 games or something in the last 5 years. So that's the injuries are the biggest thing for me. That goes all the way back to Michigan. He had those problems, but when he was with Indiana, I mean, he was a real talent that could maybe be, better than what he has been in the past few years. So I see it as a good thing that they got him. How he's going to fit in this team, that is a question they're going to have to answer, but kind of had to act fast. Again, this is why I keep saying I think they need to. Karis LeVert is one of those guys that could turn into being a really, really good player, or he's going to be injured and not do much for them at all. So I still think they need to make one more move on somebody that's out there on that wing, whether it's small forward, shooting guard, whatever it is, because obviously they're putting a lot on Jaden Ivey. So I think people are kind of forgetting that he's on the team. Like he was starting to put up those 20-point games and putting up a lot more stats last year. I think that they're going to put a lot on his shoulders. I don't know if that's the best way to go about it when he comes back from an injury when he was gone for that long. So I'd like to still see them go get one more solid NBA player and put him on this team somewhere out there on one of those wings.
And also to mention, they did draft somebody in the NBA draft last week. They got Chaz Lanier out of Tennessee. I've watched him play in college. Looks really good, but again, kind of that 3-and-D guy that the Pistons seem to have quite a bit of now, at least with a couple of guys, at least one part of that. But I guess, obviously we haven't haven't seen this team all together just yet. They haven't been on the court together, probably haven't even practiced or even shot around with each other at this time. But on paper, do you guys think this team is better than last year? Do you think that these are improvements from the team, even with the losses of Malik Beasley, Dennis Schroeder, Tim Hardaway Jr.?
I don't know if they're better than last year. I think they could be better than last year. It's tough to say because of so many moving parts right now. I definitely think if the Pistons get off to a slow start, you shouldn't panic right out of the gate because, again, some of these guys haven't played together, and all of a sudden they're going to be in the starting lineup. And Cade has still got to be the guy for this team, and I think he will still take a step forward. So ultimately, I think they can be a better team. I think they will be a better team. But again, still a little bit of time left in free agency. I'd like to see them sign somebody else. If they do that, I think they're a little bit better for sure than they were last year. And obviously the injuries going on right now around the NBA.
Exactly.
It's hard to imagine they couldn't get more wins because of that anyway. So this is the time to go do it. I mean, I'm not going to be that guy that says you have to go get Giannis to be that good. But it's just, if they do make more moves to really shore up this team, what better year is it for you guys to make a run at it, you know?
Dean, what do you think? I mean, are they better on paper?
I think they have the potential to be better on paper, right? Like, it takes a while at times for teams to kind of gel and mesh. And so, I think in time, Jaden Ivey coming back is going to be a huge plus for them. It's just getting these other guys to, fill their roles, right? You mentioned Chaz Lanier. From everything I've heard and watched, he is a tremendous three-point shooter. He's got range, and he's 23 years old. He played 4 years in college, so you're not having to teach him the fundamentals kind of thing. He's not like a young guy, so I think that's going to help a little bit. But no, I think he should help this team next season.
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely looking forward to that. And kind of like Andy said, I mean, with all these different injuries, Miles Turner now going to Milwaukee, you still don't know what's going to happen with Giannis, Dame out for the foreseeable future, Jason Tatum out for the foreseeable future, Tyrese Halliburton out for the foreseeable future. I mean, the East is really wide open. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Detroit was able to climb up to maybe that 3 or 2nd seed in the East going into the playoffs next year. But hopefully everybody stays healthy. That's obviously been the big topic of discussion in the NBA for the last little bit. And now we're going to switch over to, again, we're going to keep it on the basketball train, but switch it over from the NBA to the WNBA. The league announced earlier this week that they are planning to bring a team back to Detroit. That'll be part of the expansion of teams. They're also going to be putting a team in Cleveland and Philadelphia. The team in Cleveland is going to get started in 2028. The team in Detroit will begin in 2029, and then Philadelphia the year after in 2030. So that's kind of the 5-year plan for the league. But obviously, this means that we could potentially see a rebirth of the Detroit Shock, the 3-time WNBA champion Detroit Shock. They could be coming back. They haven't announced a name yet. I guess that's kind of where I want to start off. I mean, I feel like, at least in my opinion, the Shock should come back. That should be the name. Just with the history that they've had, the fans are still here. I would be kind of upset if they didn't go with the Shock. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'm okay with the Shock.
Yeah.
I remember going, my oldest daughter, Ella, I remember taking her to a Shock game back when she was maybe 3-4 years old. So this was right toward the end of when Detroit was had a WNBA team. And so I just remember they were playing at the Palace, and I don't know, I just liked the name Shock. But to me, I'm happy that they're bringing a team back to Detroit. I think they were disappointed. What was a couple months ago when they didn't get picked for this season. But obviously Grant Hill, and there's a bunch of Detroit guys who are on that leadership board who put the expansion bid out there. And but by the way, $250 million is the expansion fee. That was that number was wild to me.
Yeah.
But no, I'm super excited. WNBA has grown so much, and obviously the popularity of it. Caitlin Clark obviously has a lot to do with that. But no, I'm excited for the return of the Detroit, hopefully, Shock.
Yeah, I'm with the Shock name. I think that I should say that way when you've had a history where you've won titles like that and everything else. I don't really, unless they come up with something super creative, I think it could change to be that much better. I'm sure there's a lot of talks going on about that, but it's what better selling point is there to the fans that were already here before that were great fans than keeping the same name and bringing it back? I think people would be really, really excited about that. I think it would be a great opportunity for the city to, get the games, to have good attendance early on. I think even if something just as simple as keeping the same name would help that. So, I mean, seriously, I feel like there's some people out there that would be so stubborn that if the name were to change, it could hurt them. So,
right.
Yeah, I think keeping it the same name would be Detroit's all about its history. I would keep the same name for the team.
And, obviously the WNBA is on the rise. I mean, it's grown in popularity exponentially over the past couple of seasons. How big is this really for the city to have this team back? We know it's going to be back. Don't know exactly who's going to be on this team, what they're going to be called, or anything like that. But we do know that WNBA basketball is back in the city of Detroit.
I think it's a huge thing when it comes down to it. I mean, it's awesome to be able to be a part of that expansion and be able to keep the league growing. Kind of what Dean just said. I mean, it's only been getting bigger and bigger and bigger, it seems like right now. So you got to kind of strike while the iron's hot and get to be a part of it. I mean, maybe you don't want the league to expand too fast, but I mean, they're not coming until 2029. It seems like they're doing it the right way. They're kind of being separated like that. So yeah, it's hard. It's sometimes hard to be competitive, but I mean, in some sports, it is that way. I mean, look at the Golden Knights. They've already won a Stanley Cup, right, in hockey. So you can win if you get the right players and the right coaching in place. And Detroit's always been a good city for basketball. So I think it'll be great for it.
Yeah, and just look at the distance between Indiana and Detroit. How many times is Caitlin Clark going to be coming to Detroit?
Exactly.
And filling up that place. So like that's a plus right there, if you're looking at it from that standpoint. But no, just a great move, and like you said, the rise and the popularity of the WNBA, and hopefully we can get some, top name players or top notch names from either college in the next few years to come and obviously be the focal point of that franchise. And maybe Bill Laimbeer comes back to coach the Detroit Shock.
Yeah,
who knows?
I mean, what a good selling point that was.
What a great
thing, right?
Yeah.
No, right. And I mean, the Shock have obviously had a lot of success before they moved and moved again afterwards. They're now the Dallas Wings, that initial team. But, 3-time WNBA champions. They've gotten to do so many different things and were a huge plus for the city of Detroit when they were here. I mean, again, great names in WNBA history. You mentioned Bill Laimbeer. He was the coach when they were winning all those titles. Cheryl Ford, Swin Cash, Nancy Lieberman, just to name a few. Dean, you mentioned that you had taken your daughters to the games and everything like that. I mean, but I never got the chance to go to a WNBA game when they were here. So I guess, I mean, do you guys remember watching them on TV? I mean, is there a big moment from their history that always sticks out to you?
I was a little younger, so I'll let Dean have this one.
I'm a little older. Thanks, Andy. I don't ever remember it being on TV, right?
Yeah.
Like you see now, obviously with the ESPN and everything, like WNBA has grown so much that now the popularity, they're on TV a lot. So it was never really on TV. I just remember hearing about the Shock. I was a big Bill Laimbeer fan. Obviously got my girls into basketball at a young age, and so I thought it'd be great to take her down there and and watch them, and it was a great experience, and she loved it. And I remember some of the Shock were outside signing autographs before the game, and so I think that part of it. We talk about the LPGA being kind of like someone who embraces like young fans. I think the WNBA is like that, and I think hopefully they kind of do the same thing. And I think people from Detroit, obviously they're going to more than likely play at Little Caesars. They're going to come out. To me, they're going to come out and support that franchise.
I think they did say they're going to play at Little Caesars, right? That is where they're going to play at. Yeah, I believe so. They're not, because who is it? Philly that's making a new arena for them, I believe. But I think Detroit is making their own like workout facilities and practice facilities for them. So so pretty cool they're doing that.
Well, and it just comes at a good time. I mean, we're still a couple years away.
Is it 2028, Phil, or
2029? The Cleveland team will begin in 2028.
Yes,
that's when the next line of expansion goes. But again, it's still a couple years away. But I still feel like most, if not all, the Detroit teams are still going to be at least kicking a little bit, hopefully, in those next couple of years. So then you talk about the good sports teams that are going on right now, and then you add on another team, and just another reason to really just enjoy the city of Detroit, which brings us to our last point, I guess, a little bit. Obviously, it made a lot of news when this expansion was announced, and players from the league were commenting on just the news there, and that included one Sophie Cunningham of the Indiana Fever, saying that while she was glad that the league was expanding, she wasn't necessarily a fan of the cities that were chosen for the expansion, saying that she thinks the players in the league would have preferred Miami or Nashville compared to maybe Cleveland or Detroit. I just want to get your guys' thoughts. I mean, I don't know if she's been to Detroit too often. Every time I've been to Detroit, it's been fun. I'm not here to bash on any other city, but I mean, Detroit itself is a city on the rise yet again, and a great sports town. I think that's like the big key, that you want to have these teams in places where a lot of people are going to show up to these games, and Detroit fans are some of the best in the entire country.
Phil, you took my line right there.
Sorry.
No. Has she ever been to Detroit? Yes, that was going to be my thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think there's people outside of Michigan and Detroit who have like this persona of Detroit in a negative way or
You
like
don't have to think that. That's the truth.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so like I think that's the kind of the issue surrounding Sophie Cunningham. I actually like Sophie Cunningham, by the way. But some of her comments, were kind of a little far-fetched, right? Like she doesn't really know Detroit. She doesn't know the people. She doesn't know the support, like you said, Phil. So like I was a little disappointed in those comments. Of course, athletes are going to want to go to Miami,
Right,
and
exactly.
yes, those are fun city. I've been to Miami. They're fun. Nashville's fun, but Detroit has a lot of rich history and tradition, and yes, I love going to Detroit right now. Like years back, it was maybe
It was rough.
It was rough.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just but like lately, obviously, I've been to Detroit several times in the last 15 years, and like I like the city of Detroit. It offers a lot. So
Yeah.
in that case,
It's gotten way better, and it's nothing against Miami or anything like that. Fine, whatever. But again, what you kind of said, Phil, it's about sports at the end of the day, right?
Right.
And Detroit is like a great sports town. Just a couple facts for you here, real quick. When it comes to attendance over the last few years, the Pistons were 9th in the league last year when they were a good team, right? Coming back with their attendance. The Red Wings, as bad as they've been for the past how many years now, they were still 2nd in the league for that. The Tigers right now have had over 1 million fans already this season come to their park.
Wow.
And that's just from the end of last year into this year being this good. Promoting it, the Lions average 64,000 fans every game. And just to really cap it off, when the Shock were here, they led the league in attendance for the 3 years in a row that they won the championships. And they set the single game record for 22,000 fans. So, yeah, there are people that care about the sports here and come and watch. And it truly is a special environment. Like, My girlfriend's from a different state, right, all the time, and I'm always trying to convince her that the sports teams are awesome to follow here because she's not from here. Now she's a part of it a little bit, and she's come to see how special it really is when we go to some of these games, and she's kind of wowed by it. It's like people that have never been to Michigan don't understand like how much it means to these Midwest. I mean, any of these Midwest teams, like people care about the sports here because sometimes that's when it's cold in the winter and there's nothing else to do. That's what you do. So yeah, it's like. It's just one of those perceptions that people think just because it's like darker, colder, all that kind of stuff. Like when it comes to weather, it's just like it can be a great city at the same time. And Detroit's only been on the up and up, and the numbers are there to back it up. I mean, the Tigers on Sunday Night Baseball, right? The Sunday Night Baseball numbers have been going up. The game that Skubal pitched, that broke the record once again for Sunday Night Baseball in the last 20 years for views. They're back on Sunday Night Baseball in a couple of weeks. It just got announced today against the Rangers. It's definitely there when the players are there and the talent's there and they're good. I mean, obviously, you want to support your team no matter what, but like I feel like every city is almost the same way. You get a bigger attendance when you get more people's or when you get more wins. So,
Right.
yeah, you got a successful team. There's no better city to have a successful team in.
right.
Yeah.
And the weather shouldn't be a factor because WNBA is
about
They're
to
playing in
See,
summer.
now you
spring
stole
and the-
my line. Yeah.
in the spring and the summer.
Okay,
so
to be
there's
fair,
gonna be
like,
harsh winters.
well, we're talking about Sophie Cunningham's comments. if you're living there, and
Yes.
like
Right.
you'd probably rather live. I'm not gonna say if you like warm weather, you should rather want to live in Detroit
Yes.
or Cleveland or wherever
Nashville.
in Miami. That's
I
fair,
like
right?
Cleveland.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like both those places are warmer. I just think if you actually care about sports. I mean, there are plenty of warm places. I mean, look at like Miami baseball. Have you seen some of those crowds?
Right.
Like people just don't care if they're not winning or they're not relevant. So
Right.
it's a lot. Like even when the Tigers were horrible, they still had decent crowds. The Lions, are the worst team in football, for how long that place would still sell out sometimes. So yeah, people just care about sports here a lot. So if you care about your sport, why wouldn't you want to play here?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you guys really hit the nail on the head there. I mean, I remember when Stephen A. Smith said those comments about Memphis a couple days ago or a couple weeks ago, and I felt some type of way about that. I'm from Memphis. I've been there. It's not the reputation that it has, and so kind of hearing that same thing about Detroit, especially just with everything going on and just how big of a sports town that is. I mean, they've got major sports in every of the 4 big sports leagues.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I mean,
Have
just
it.
it's a big city. Like this is the place to have a WNBA team, and it just makes sense to bring back the Shock or whatever we decide to end up calling them. Guys, we do have a couple of minutes left, and we want to pivot now away from basketball and over onto the ice. The Red Wings are also in the midst of the offseason with free agency going on. They've made a couple of moves already. Just want to get your guys' general thoughts on what they've made so far. I mean, Steve Yzerman got a lot of flack at the end of the season meetings to kind of close out the past season, just saying that this team was not making the moves necessary. So far, as free agency has opened up, do you guys think that maybe he's improved on that, or do you think those comments still ring true now a couple days in?
Yeah, that's the thing.
How do you feel, Andy?
It's only a couple days in, so you can't say too much. The first thing I'll say is Alex DeBrincat. I think the best signing he's had since he's been here. He did sign him on July 9th. So you got to give him a little bit of time before you go off on it. But so far, James Van Riemsdyk is their best signing to add to their offense. He's 36 years old. Him and Kane were the first and second picks overall in the 2007 draft. So yeah, it's a little bit of retirement home type ads. I mean, nothing against James Van Riemsdyk. He had a game last year where he scored a bunch against the Wings. Obviously, that probably stuck with it. I think he scored 4 total goals against them last year. For $1 million, it's a pretty good ad, to be honest with you, for a season. So I have no problem with that. And the John Gibson signing and goalie, I don't mind that either. They needed to add to their goaltending. Him and Talbot, I definitely think could form a better goaltending duo than what they've had in the past. But the main problem is the D-line still hasn't gotten any better. And I want to give him a little bit more time because right now he might have to make a move through trades of such or do something like that. But if this is what they go into with the season right now, it's going to be very hard to convince anybody that it's anything other than, spinning the tires. And this fan base is so good and so full of history, and they keep showing up. I just told you guys the attendance numbers, and they're still at the top, still getting big revenue sales and everything else. At some point, if it doesn't change, it's like, we were used to win. Like, why aren't we winning anymore? Well, it's probably because right now with the pro scouting level, they haven't been able to get it done. And this just looks like another example of that right now. He's drafted very well, but you got to see something else here this offseason, I think, for it to be considered successful, even with a couple of minor moves they make. 'Cause otherwise, it just kind of feels like the same thing they've done in the past. I mean, when they got rid of Tarasenko and they dumped the contract, great move to get rid of that money and open up cap space. They had $17.5 million. Barely have spent any of it so far. So you're kind of just wondering, where is this going to go or what's going to happen?
Right.
Yeah, I agree with Andy on a lot of his points. Obviously, Patrick Kane coming back, I think, is big, for the franchise. And I also think that Gibson, the Red Wings went through 5 different goaltenders last year. So you need that consistent presence in the net to have some success. So I agree with Andy. There's still more to come, I think, more moves for Yzerman. This team has not been to the playoffs in 9 years. This is his 7th year as a general manager, and obviously something has to be done. And so I think, it's not over yet. He's going to make a few more moves here to hopefully put them in the right position to be successful next season.
Kind of talked about how, in Detroit, the fans are that loyal. Sometimes this is the problem with it, it feels like, with the organization, because you have to separate Steve Yzerman, the hockey player, from the GM sometimes. And he was very successful in Tampa. I hate it when people say it was luck, because you don't get that lucky. You don't create what he created over there without having skill at the job. I believe that he does, but where is it here? When are we going to make a change in our pro scouting department to get better NHL ready players here? At some point you have to, I know that he wants to win Stanley Cups. It's his famous quote. He wants to build a dynasty that keeps winning Stanley Cups. At some point you have to make the playoffs to win Stanley Cups. So something has to change. I mean, if his last name wasn't Yzerman, he probably still wouldn't be the GM of this franchise. I think we can all agree with that.
Facts.
It's something has to change here, and I think he's got time to do it, but you got to make a trade or something. All those Yzerman laser beam eye memes that everybody kept putting out there, and all the people that still support him on Twitter, you don't really see those anymore. That needs to come back. That excitement needs to come back. He's got to do something.
Time's running out.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is he on the hot seat? I mean, say they don't make any more moves. This is the team that they roll out with, and again, they missed the playoffs. I mean, is it time to say goodbye if that's the case?
I would, you're not going to get an argument from me.
No, me neither. If they miss the playoffs, 100%, you have to really, really think about doing something like that.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, at that, when does the direction change? What, we're going to go 10 years? We're going to go 15 years? I mean, the Tigers had, I think baseball and hockey are two of the sports you can kind of comp when it comes to that kind of stuff a little bit, just because you draft players and it takes a while for them to get better, right? Well, I mean, the Tigers kind of had that thing with Al Avila where it felt like you left him around for too long. Is Chris Illich, a lot of people have different opinions on him. At least he got rid of him and hired a guy that was good at working on the farm system if they wanted to go that direction. Steve has done a good job with that, but in a sport like hockey, you have to have some adults in the room, some guys that are good on the defensive end of the ice that maybe can control it or, make a difference when it comes to, mental strength and stuff like that. They're playing with a lot of young guys right now, and it's just, it's hard to imagine without having a big brute out there, they're going to get any better. So if he doesn't make moves right now, I just don't know I don't think the leash could be any longer than it's already been.
Yep.
All right, well, time will tell with that. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for stopping by for this week. We are out of time today. We'll be back again next week, just bringing you all the latest regarding sports in and around West Michigan. All right, we'll see you guys next week.